So my husband and I have one 18-month-old son, and I am pregnant with our second baby. We live in a major city, and his mother lives in a suburb 45 minutes north of us. Her doctor works out of a hospital located downtown in our city, and my mother-in-law will often stay over at our place after her appointments instead of driving back to her home, as her appointments usually end right around when rush hour begins. Yesterday was one of these days. She went to have some labs drawn at the hospital and then came over to our home when I was just about done cooking dinner. My husband was at the gym. I had a long day yesterday. I felt absolutely exhausted from pregnancy and chasing my toddler around all day. We were running low on groceries with not a lot of dinner options, so I was planning to make a really easy dinner of spaghetti with frozen meatballs. But when I went into the kitchen to start cooking, I realized that we were actually out of the meatballs I thought we still had. It was too late to go to the store to get something else to make. My kid was already acting hungry, and I was starving and exhausted. So I just thought, well, I guess we don't need to have protein with every single meal, and made the pasta without meatballs. When my mother-in-law saw me putting my son in his seat and serving him his food, she said, "Just pasta?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I totally forgot I used up all our frozen meatballs until I was already cooking, so it's a meatless dinner night." And she said that she wished I would have texted her and she would have grabbed me meatballs from the store on her way so that her grandson and her grandbaby to-be could have a real dinner. This really irked me as his meal was a real dinner, and it's not like I don't serve him protein. He had protein with breakfast and lunch yesterday. I also don't like how she referred to her grandbaby to-be getting a real meal as I'm pregnant, and so it's obviously me who has to eat in order to nourish the baby. It's me that's not getting a real meal, according to her logic. It made me feel like she sees me as some kind of vessel and really made me mad. I told her that maybe she's uneducated about how much protein humans actually need, and there's nothing wrong with our dinner. She immediately got very upset that I called her uneducated when she's raised 3 boys and she knows what growing boys need to eat, and told me I should try and plan harder next time. This last comment sent me over the edge, and I yelled at her to get out of my house if she's just going to criticize my mothering abilities, and that she needs to stop using our place as a home base in the city when she has her appointments, if she's going to make comments like that. She left in a huff, screaming about how she couldn't believe I was kicking her out over some constructive criticism before she even got to spend time with her grandson. I told her I'm not looking for any type of criticism from her. She called my husband and said I went on a hormone-induced rage and kicked her out because I couldn't deal with being called out on not serving my son a proper dinner, and said she wants to keep coming over after her appointments. My husband wants both of us to apologize to each other to make peace, but I told him I'm not some elementary schooler who's going to be forced to apologize when I didn't do anything wrong just to make the issue go away. Now he's mad at me too, and I'm wondering if I actually didn't do anything wrong. Am I the jerk? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, laugh out loud. Girl, my son ate a banana, string cheese, goldfish crackers, applesauce, and a chocolate chip cookie yesterday. Multiple servings, enough to fill him up. But just those foods. That's not a typical day, but frankly, for some toddlers, that is a typical day. This age is when they start getting really picky about their food. Not the jerk and I would not be open to justifying my healthy child's diet for a single day to anyone, let alone a guest in my house. If mother-in-law wants to dictate someone's diet, she can have another kid of her own. Otherwise, she can shut up and watch me eat these hot Cheetos while my son plows through some more goldfish. Comment 2. Tell your husband that you will no longer be taking the easy way out to keep the peace, as all that does is enable his mom's shitty behavior. From now on, boundaries will be enforced and consequences enabled. If they don't like it, maybe act right. Not the jerk, but your husband is straddling that line that his mom just long jumped over into jerk territory. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since the last post. So after that whole incident with my mother-in-law, things got even more complicated. My husband and I had a huge argument about it. He was really insistent that I should apologize to his mom, but I stood my ground. I felt like I was being treated unfairly, and I wasn't going to back down just to keep the peace. It was a tense few days, to say the least. A few days later, my mother-in-law had another appointment in the city. This time, she didn't come over to our place afterward. Instead, she called my husband and asked him to meet her for dinner. He went, and when he came back, he looked really troubled. He told me that his mom had been diagnosed with a serious health condition. She didn't want to tell me because she felt like I didn't care about her, especially after our last argument. This news hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt terrible for how I had treated her, and I realized that maybe I had been too harsh. I decided to reach out to her and apologize. I called her and told her that I was sorry for how I had acted and that I didn't mean to hurt her. She was quiet for a moment, and then she started crying. She told me that she was scared about her health and that she didn't want to be a burden on us. We had a long conversation, and I realized that she was just trying to help in her own way. It was a really eye-opening moment for me. After that, things started to improve between us. She came over for dinner again, and this time, I made sure to have a proper meal prepared. We talked more openly, and I started to see her in a different light. She wasn't just my mother-in-law. She was a person with her own fears and insecurities. It made me think about my own relationship with my mom and how I would feel if I were in her shoes. But before I tell you more about that, something else happened that really changed my perspective. One evening, my husband and I were talking about our future and our kids. He mentioned that he wanted to move closer to his mom so that we could be there for her more often. At first, I was against the idea. I loved our home and didn't want to uproot our lives. But then he told me something that really struck a chord. He said that when he was a kid, his dad was always working, and his mom was the one who took care of everything. She was the one who made sure they had food on the table, helped them with their homework, and took care of them when they were sick. He said that he wanted to be there for her now, just like she was there for him when he was growing up. Hearing him talk about his childhood made me realize how important family is and how much his mom meant to him. I started to think about my own parents and how I would feel if they needed me. It made me realize that maybe I had been too focused on my own needs and not enough on the needs of those around me. It was a tough pill to swallow, but it was a necessary one. We decided to start looking for houses closer to his mom. It wasn't an easy decision, but it felt like the right one. We found a place that was about 15 minutes away from her, and we started the process of moving. It was a hectic time, but it brought us closer together as a family. My mother-in-law was really grateful, and it felt good to be able to support her. During this time, I also learned more about my husband's childhood. He told me stories about how his mom used to make their favorite meals and how she would always be there to listen to them. It made me appreciate her even more and understand why she was so concerned about our son's nutrition. She just wanted the best for him, just like she wanted the best for her own kids. As we settled into our new home, I started to feel more at peace. My relationship with my mother-in-law improved, and I felt like we were finally on the same page. I also felt closer to my husband, knowing that we were making the right decision for our family, but I'll get to that in a bit. Before I wrap this up, I want to share something that really touched me. One evening, my mother-in-law came over for dinner, and she brought a photo album with her. She showed me pictures of my husband and his brothers when they were kids. There was one picture that really stood out to me. It was a picture of my husband as a little boy, sitting at the kitchen table with a big smile on his face. His mom was standing behind him, looking so proud. It made me realize how much love and care she had put into raising her kids, and how much she wanted to be a part of our lives. So that's where we are now. We're in a new home, closer to my mother-in-law, and things are looking up. It's been a challenging few weeks, but it's also been a time of growth and understanding. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for yelling at my girlfriend when she caught me shaving my body in the shower? I, 24-year-old male, just had a bad fight with my girlfriend Anna, 24-year-old female. We met early in college, started dating 2 years ago, and then moved in together 3 months ago. I always thought we were great together. She's smart and funny. We've had the best talks and have similar views on science and politics. But we moved in together, and she got upset because I take long showers. I don't like to talk about it, but I'm a hairy guy. Think Luther from Umbrella Academy. I quit sports when I was 13 because I couldn't deal with what the other guys would say about how much body hair I already had by then. So I shave my whole body, and yes, it takes a while. Anna and I have never talked about my shaving, but she has to know I shave from feeling the stubble. So Anna started questioning why I spend so long in the shower. I should have just told her, but I was too embarrassed to say it takes a while to shave. So I said I just like thinking in the shower. Then yesterday, while I was in the shower, she used a screwdriver to pop the bathroom lock and caught me shaving. She put her hands on her hips and told me I was wasting water, and I yelled at her to get out. She didn't leave and lectured me more on wasting water. Then I shouted again a lot louder for her to get the frick out. It freaked her out, and she slammed the door behind her. I was mad and took a few minutes to cool down and think about what I was going to say to her, but when I got out, she had locked herself in the bedroom. I could tell she had her back against the door and was crying. She said I scared her and that I showed her that I wasn't the kind of man she thought I was. I told her she had scared me, and that it didn't even make sense why she did it, because we don't even pay for the water in our apartment. She got more upset and said I didn't even understand the problem because I showed her that I could be violent and hurtful, and I just needed to leave. I tried to keep calm and asked her to come out so we could actually talk about what happened, but she just kept saying I wasn't who she thought I was and I had to leave. We've argued about ideas but never had a fight before, and I swear I've never yelled or cursed at her before that. I hate fighting with anyone and am normally the calmer person when our friends have things going on. I feel like my whole world just suddenly fell out from under me. I don't think this was my fault, but I also think none of this would have happened if I wasn't so self-conscious about the body hair issue. Or maybe if I had just been honest from the beginning and told her why I take long showers. I'm sure this relationship is over now and things are going to be messed up for a while, but I just want to know, am I the jerk for causing this whole mess? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. She knew damn well what she was doing. She wanted to make sure you weren't pleasuring yourself. She figured she'd catch you at it and be able to scream at you about that. Once she closed the door, she made up some lame excuse about the water. ETA judgment. Comment 2. Not the idiot. She's using this not who I thought and you scared me to make herself the victim when she was the instigator. Tell her she's free to leave if she feels unsafe, and consider why you would stay with someone like this. Don't apologize or accept blame. Now for the update, hey everyone, thanks for all the comments from my last post. So after that fight, things got even more complicated. The next morning, I woke up to find Anna had already left for work. She didn't leave a note or anything, which made me feel even worse. I decided to take the day off to try and figure things out. I spent most of the day pacing around the apartment, replaying the argument in my head and trying to come up with a way to fix things. I knew I had to talk to her, but I wasn't sure how to approach it without making things worse. When Anna came home that evening, she looked exhausted. I could tell she had been crying at work. I tried to talk to her, but she just brushed past me and went straight to the bedroom. I followed her and gently knocked on the door, asking if we could talk. She didn't respond at first, but eventually she opened the door and let me in. We sat on the bed in silence for a few minutes before I finally spoke up. I apologized for yelling at her and explained why I take long showers. I told her about my body hair and how self-conscious I've been about it since I was a kid. She listened quietly, and I could see her expression soften a bit. Anna admitted that she had overreacted by breaking into the bathroom and that she was sorry for making me feel embarrassed. She said she was just frustrated because she thought I was hiding something from her, and it made her feel like she couldn't trust me. We talked for a while and agreed that we both needed to work on our communication. It felt like we were making progress, but there was still a lot of tension between us. The next day, I decided to take a proactive approach and do something nice for Anna. I cleaned the entire apartment, cooked her favorite dinner, and even bought her some flowers. When she came home, she seemed genuinely surprised and touched by the effort I had put in. We had a nice dinner together and talked about our day. It felt like things were starting to get back to normal, but there was still an underlying tension that neither of us could shake. That night, as we were getting ready for bed, Anna brought up something that caught me off guard. She told me that she had been thinking a lot about our relationship and that she wasn't sure if we were right for each other. She said that the fight had made her realize that there were some fundamental differences between us that she couldn't ignore. I was devastated. I thought we were making progress, but it seemed like she was already 1 foot out the door. We spent the next few days in a weird limbo. We were civil to each other, but there was a noticeable distance between us. I tried to give her space, hoping that she would come around, but it felt like I was walking on eggshells. I couldn't shake the feeling that our relationship was hanging by a thread. On the third day, Anna came home with a serious look on her face. She sat me down and told me that she had made a decision. She said that she needed some time apart to figure things out and that she was going to stay with a friend for a while. I was crushed, but I knew I couldn't stop her. I helped her pack a bag and watched as she walked out the door, feeling like my heart was being ripped out of my chest. As I sat alone in the apartment, I started to think about our relationship and where things had gone wrong. I realized that I had been so focused on my own insecurities that I hadn't been paying attention to Anna's needs. I had taken her for granted and assumed that she would always be there, no matter what. It was a harsh wake-up call, but it made me realize that I needed to make some changes if I wanted to salvage our relationship. I decided to reach out to a therapist to help me work through my issues with body hair and self-esteem. I knew it was something I needed to address, not just for Anna, but for myself. I also started reading up on communication and relationship skills, hoping to become a better partner. A few days later, Anna called me to check in. She said she was doing okay, and that she was glad we were taking some time apart. She also mentioned that she had been talking to her friend about our relationship, and that it had helped her gain some perspective. We agreed to meet up in a week to talk about where we stood and what we wanted to do moving forward. In the meantime, I continued to work on myself and tried to stay positive. I knew that there was a chance that Anna might decide that she didn't want to be with me anymore, but I was determined to do everything I could to show her that I was willing to change and grow. When we finally met up, it was a bittersweet reunion. We hugged and talked about what we had been doing during our time apart. Anna told me that she had been thinking a lot about our relationship and that she still loved me, but she wasn't sure if we could make it work. She said that she needed more time to figure things out and that she wanted to take things slow. We agreed to keep in touch and see where things went from there. It wasn't the resolution I had hoped for, but it was a start. I knew that we had a long road ahead of us, but I was willing to put in the effort to make things right. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for threatening to call the cops on my sister's creepy teacher? For context, I basically raised my sister because my mother is a functional alcoholic. Last week, my sister returned to school. She was absent for a while due to being ill, epilepsy. There have been rumors about her geography teacher getting too comfortable with underage students for a while now, but nothing has been proven. Geography was her last lesson of the day, and the teacher in question greeted her by grabbing her wrist and apparently saying, "I'm glad you're back." This raised some red flags when my sister came home and told me. Regrettably, despite my concerns, I assured my sister she probably meant nothing by it. The next day, I got a call from my sister's school accusing her of punching her geography teacher. To say I was shocked is an understatement. It's not like my sister to be violent at all. She rarely even raises her voice. I agreed to visit the school the next morning, not before asking to hear my sister's side of the story when she got home. According to my sister, her teacher was acting inappropriately, for example, touching her numerous times, looming over her desk, and making subtle remarks about how she could see her bra through her shirt. At the end of the lesson, the teacher stood by her desk and asked her to collect the textbooks. When she stood up, her teacher brushed her arm against my sister's chest, then groped her crotch. My sister instinctively punched the teacher and left the classroom crying. My sister sits at the back of that class, so the only other witness was the girl sitting to her right. When I met her head teacher the next morning, I was told my sister had punched her geography teacher after refusing to collect the textbooks when she asked. My sister had already given the head teacher her account of what happened, but was accused of lying to get out of being suspended for a week, despite her friend having come forward as a witness. Here's where I'm being accused of being an AH. After the head teacher told me she would be suspended for a week, I lost my shoot. My sister had already spent enough time away from school due to her epilepsy and was falling behind. I said there was no chance I would allow the school to suspend her for, in my opinion, acting appropriately after a teacher attacked her. I know for a fact there are cameras in every classroom because I attended that school when I was my sister's age. The head teacher defended the geography teacher by stating she has a husband, therefore would have no interest in young girls. I lost my temper at this remark and threatened to call the police, but all I accomplished was getting my sister expelled. Now my sister has no school to go back to, and I know she's upset about that, despite telling me she's okay. The rest of our family is calling me an AH for getting her expelled when this is the only school equipped to deal with her epilepsy. I could have requested my sister's transfer to another geography class, but I wasn't thinking at the time, and it's going to be a long time before we can get her into another school. I know I messed up, getting her expelled, but I believe my sister did the right thing. To add, all the advice has been really helpful. Thank you. I showed my sister this post, and she's really appreciated all the support. But unfortunately, there has been some hate as well. Nonetheless, the police have been involved, but that's not why I made this post. As for everyone claiming this post is anti-LGBT, I would like to mention I am bisexual. The conflict within my family has been mostly resolved for now, so I probably won't be updating this anymore. For your information, I came to Reddit to determine if I was an AH for reacting the way I did, and I did immediately contact the police after I left. Thanks again to everyone for the advice and support. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. Your sister did the right thing by defending herself against a teacher who crossed the line. It's appalling that the school failed to protect her and instead chose to defend the teacher. Standing up for your sister in that situation was the right move, even if it led to her expulsion. Her safety and well-being come first. You did what you thought was best given the circumstances. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Contact a lawyer, call the police, and get the evidence you need to prove your sister is righteous. Once you have that, you should press charges and sue the teacher, the head teacher, and the school. It's the school and the head teacher's job to protect your sister, not suspend or expel her for defending herself against someone who is acting in an inappropriate or illegal manner. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments and support from my last post. So after my sister got expelled, things got really hectic. The police got involved and they started an investigation into the geography teacher. They interviewed my sister, her friend who witnessed the incident, and even some other students who had similar complaints. It turns out my sister wasn't the only one who had issues with this teacher. Several other students came forward with their own stories of inappropriate behavior. This gave me some hope that justice would be served. In the meantime, I had to figure out what to do about my sister's education. I spent hours on the phone with different schools, trying to find one that could accommodate her epilepsy and take her in mid-semester. It was a nightmare. Most schools were either full or didn't have the resources to support her needs. I was starting to feel really desperate. One evening, while I was making dinner, my sister came into the kitchen looking really upset. She told me that she felt like everything was her fault and that she was a burden. It broke my heart to hear her say that. I hugged her and told her that none of this was her fault and that I would do everything in my power to make things right. But deep down, I was struggling with my own feelings of guilt and frustration. A few days later, I got a call from the police. They had reviewed the footage from the classroom cameras and confirmed that the geography teacher had indeed acted inappropriately towards my sister. The teacher was arrested and charged with intimacy attack. This was a huge relief, but it also meant that my sister would have to testify in court. I knew this would be really tough for her, but I promised to be there for her every step of the way. As the court date approached, my sister's anxiety started to get worse. She was having more frequent seizures, and I was really worried about her health. I decided to take some time off work to be with her and make sure she was okay. It was a difficult decision because we were already struggling financially, but I knew it was the right thing to do. During this time, I also had to deal with our family. Some of them were still angry with me for getting my sister expelled, and they weren't shy about letting me know. My mom, in particular, was really upset. She kept saying that I should have handled things differently and that I had ruined my sister's future. It was hard to hear, but I tried to stay focused on what was important, supporting my sister and making sure she got the justice she deserved. The day of the court hearing finally arrived. My sister was really nervous, but she was also determined to tell her story. I sat with her in the waiting room, holding her hand and trying to keep her calm. When it was her turn to testify, she took a deep breath and walked into the courtroom. I was so proud of her for being so brave. As she told her story, I could see the pain and fear in her eyes. It was heartbreaking to watch, but I knew she was doing the right thing. The geography teacher's lawyer tried to discredit her, but my sister stood her ground and didn't let them intimidate her. Her friend also testified and backed up her story, which was a huge help. After the hearing, we had to wait for the judge's decision. It was an agonizing few days, but eventually we got the news that the teacher had been found guilty and would be sentenced to prison. This was a huge victory for my sister, and I could see the relief on her face. But I also knew that this was just the beginning of her healing process. With the court case behind us, I turned my attention back to finding a new school for my sister. After weeks of searching, I finally found a school that was willing to take her in and had the resources to support her epilepsy. It was a bit of a commute, but I was willing to do whatever it took to make sure she got the education she deserved. As we settled into this new routine, I started to reflect on everything that had happened. I realized that my sister and I had been through so much together, and it had only made our bond stronger. I also thought about our mom and her struggles with alcoholism. It wasn't easy growing up with a functional alcoholic parent, and I often felt like I had to be the adult in the family. But I knew that my experiences had shaped me into the person I am today, someone who would do anything to protect and support my sister. One evening, as we were sitting on the couch watching TV, my sister turned to me and said, "Thank you for everything. I don't know what I would do without you." Her words meant the world to me, and I knew that no matter what challenges we faced, we would get through them together. So that's where we are now. My sister is adjusting to her new school, and I'm doing my best to support her and make sure she has everything she needs. It's been a tough journey, but I know we're on the right path. Thanks again for all the advice and support. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.